Okay, there we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back once again to the LootBet Pro Series 7. We are ready now for Game 2 between 4Zoomers and Team Team, our all-North American matchup today. The 4Zoomers able to strike first in this series, getting themselves the win in Game number 1, and looking pretty good in the process, putting together a solid strat, able to deal with Team Team's lineup pretty effectively through some very impressive team fight efforts on their part. So they come into this one with a little bit of momentum, hoping for that 2-0 sweep. So with that in mind, we move into the Game 2 draft. I'm joined by ET once again, and ET, we've seen Team Team show us a little bit of something at the end of that last series against Beast Coast, but they did get kind of hit up quite hard in Game 1, and now a chance to salvage another 1-1 drop, but they need to make some adjustments.
Yeah, and I think they played a little too heavily into four zoomers. And if you look at four zoomers on paper, if Team Team really wanted to drag it out, they still have Ursa Puck. They still have a lot of building push issues. But when you've got a 26k net worth lead, your issues start to cease as you have all those luxury items. And actually, four Zoomers are the ones who banned the Puck here, so I find that pretty interesting. I think Puck really being another hero that we see being a huge theme for this tournament. We've seen pretty much every team who's able to pick it up feel pretty successful with it. I think only seeing it flop once or twice, typically playing versus a Tiny, but even when we see teams like Beast Coast flex it around to that offlane position, that might be specific to Whisper, but it still feels pretty fantastic. And for the first time, we're actually going to see this for Zoomers Lena, a hero that was popular on the previous iteration of this team. But now that it's in the hands of Z-Freak, he absolutely loves this hero, is the hero he uses to occupy that dead lane, is able to push in those creeps, get so much farm, get so many levels, and then suddenly he shows up to a fight, kills your carry, moves on to the next hero. It really feels like you have four cores when you get him on this Lena.
Yeah, going from sort of strength to strength there. The last iteration of this lineup had Ocean in that sort of pause for Lena role, and now you go from Ocean to Z-Freak. So kind of surprising that this is the first time we're seeing the Lena from this new lineup, although to be fair, they have been together as a team for all of, what, a week or two now? So haven't really gotten to see the largest sample size of games from them. It makes a little bit more sense that the lead is only coming out now. On the other side, though, Team Team, solid opening. About as straightforward as you can get. Mars and Lion in for them in Phase 1. Going to give them quite a bit to work with in terms of sort of lockdown and teamfight control, but in a similar vein, the Tidehunter coming out from that 4-Zoomer side. Moo was so damn impressive on this hero in Game 1. Really just kind of looking for more of the same here in Game 2.
And while four zoomers are definitely being slightly transparent here, that Lena does give you a shred of flexibility where we've seen Bryle play this Lena, and if the matchup allows it, Lena is one of those mid laners that you take a matchup that feels 50-50, then it feels 60-40, then it feels 70-30, and then the game is untenable at that point. And that's where, again, we see this Tidehunter as their solution to the Lion, where in the previous game, every single time Flea was blinking forward to get that blink initiation onto a very key core player on the 4-Zoomer side, Moo is there with the Ravage. It's just the huge AoE stun that really plays well versus this Lion style where you need to be close to your targets to actually get those good disables. And I think they're kind of falling into that same trap on the team side. Of course, you do have a Mars. You have a little bit of an easier time for Brax. He's going to be able to get online just a little bit faster, has a little bit of a stronger stun, has a stun as opposed to that Brewmaster, but I think that Brewmaster slots in just a little bit better for against the Tide for a very similar reason where you are a solution to the Tidehunter. You throw him up into the air and then you wait. Whereas with the Mars, your team fights need to start and begin very cleanly, very precisely. Otherwise, if you spear this Tidehunter and he is not dead after that Kraken Shell purges, gonna get ravaged. You're gonna get killed. And Team, I like that they're bringing it back to the Mars because they
I'm diving.
really had a very big deal of success when they focused majorly on their own draft and ignored their opponents. I think if they can give the same lineup where it's just team fight, and then Sammy Boy farming, that's exactly what they're going to want to do. Whereas for Zoomers, they have a little bit more in the way of options where Gunner can play a little bit more confidently. I don't think this team has at least drafted in that same way where four Zoomers are all in on team fight and then they let Eternal Envy farm, even though I'm sure Eternal Envy would be happy with that. They play a lot more independently as of right now. Even Moo in that previous game, while itemization-wise, he was very adept at helping his teammates, he didn't really need to play for his own game. He just needed to make sure that both his Ursa and Puck were still capable of dealing damage, and get to see the Moo tied again in what should be an even easier lane because Lena dominates that lane even a little bit harder than that Grimstroke.
Yeah, a lot of pressure that can sort of come out from the Lena. Meanwhile, we are pretty much all in on carry bans here in Phase 2. Luna, TA, Ursa banned out by Zoomers, Team. Meanwhile, Spectre and Medusa so far. So, well, okay, never mind. We sort of shake things up a little bit with the Ember Spirit, but both teams realizing Envy and Sammy are going to be maybe not the only focal point, but it's going to be so much about what they put together for those two heroes, especially in the current patch. ET, you've been mentioning it in so many of our drafts. A lot of these games come down to that carry matchup now. It's just the nature of where we stand in the current meta. So both sides trying to take steps to limit some of those more obvious and more dangerous options. But now Team, after all those bans on carry heroes, don't actually slam down any sort of Sammy pick. They take the Ancient Apparition first, trying to get maybe a little bit more in the way of both lane harassment and some potential. Hello? I believe everything is back up and running. Oh, thank the Lord. Hello, everyone. I have missed you so. Had some, internet interruptage, courtesy of Comcast. Always gotta love it. But, I'm back up. We're here. I think the stream is back up and running. I will get confirmation of that in just a moment. It appears good on my end, so here we are. We're into Game 2. I apologize profusely for that, but complete cutout on the internet on my side for a little while. I was very much panicking, but I believe we're back up and running here. We're into the game, so we did miss a little bit of the draft. First about 10 minutes of gameplay here as well. Uh-oh. I now have a bit of a lag spike. Hopefully this does not mean we're dropping out again. Come on. DC'd for a moment. Let me try to get back in. Okay. Well, DC'd again, but this time we're able to get back in relatively quickly. Hopefully that's a good sign. ET is still with me?
Yes, I am, and I've been watching like a hawk as soon we can get the recap going.
Yeah, please, with the recap, I'm just sitting here fingers crossed on the internet front. But yeah, 10 minutes in, what have we missed?
10 minutes in, really all you've missed. Sammy Boy was able to get the first blood at the first minute rune. Ionx Mike has been feeding bottom. Taking a look at the 4-zoomer side, we've been seeing Husky struggling to get anything done in the top lane. Mars Brax was able to get the tower just a few moments ago, but in addition to that, they've been playing fantastically versus the Hoodwink. Mid lane's been more or less a 50-50, a farm fest of the ages. Gunner at 100 last hits at 10 minutes into the game, and that's been more or less everything.
Damn. Thank you for the recap, ET. Glad to have you along, even if I was struggling so damn hard. I'm so sorry, everybody, but Comcast does as Comcast pleases. So hopefully saying that has not offended them to the point where I get cut out again, and we can carry on with this match. So 11 minutes in, 4-3. Laning stage already kind of breaking up a little bit, and 4-zoomers well, looking... maybe not directly for the aggression, but you see 4 heroes maneuvering their way into this south side jungle. They could go for something as Gunner is going to make his way down bot. They've got eyes on Ryoya. That's going to be the Winter's Curse coming out first, but Gunner is not affected by it. He's going to go straight in onto Mike. Doesn't have the damage directly for the kill, though. The sniper shot, I believe, was actually eaten by Ryoya instead, so that damage is going to get split up. They can't find the kill, and now Brax kind of hanging out in no man's land. His move, gonna hit him up with the Ravage. The snowball's coming in as well. This Mars does not have the opportunity to throw out anything. He is stun-locked and finished off, so Zoomers, well, able to make that play happen. It wasn't the initial target they wanted, as Gunner was trying to set up onto the Wyvern, but they're at least able to find something as Brax gets taken down.
And that's sort of been the theme of this Moo Tidehunter, where every single time he somehow catches you off guard without a Blink Dagger because he's sitting on these high grounds. He's done it at least 5 times in the past 2 games here. And we do have Rioya on that Winter Wyvern core, who's just been incredibly obnoxious, been holding the tower. But at the same time, you take a look at Gunnar, and boy, has he had a free Lina game. He's working immediately for that BKB. Once he gets it, he's going to be able to play so much more aggressively on the team side. And this was the big concern coming out of the draft, was just, will Four Zoomers be able to sit on themselves, sit on their hands, farm up these items? If they can get the BKB on Lina in just a few more minutes here, as well as that next big item for Eternal Envy, all of their last hits, all of their farm is so good. You look at the Tricore and Four Zoomers, no one is a slouch in that net worth department. They're just able to play so much more aggressively than Team right now, whereas all of the farm is much more stacked on that gyrocopter.
Meanwhile, what is going on here behind behind the tower? IX Mike getting sort of sniped out by Z-Freak. That is an incredibly bold move, considering there's about 3 or 4 team heroes who were sort of further forward, and now we do see Brax TPing himself onto the tier 2 mid. So it looks like Z-Freak isn't going to entirely get away with this, but a sneaky play onto the back line, although at the end of the day it's a 1-for-1 trade-off, and you get quite a few assists go in the way of team in the aftermath. So I like Z-Freak sort of playing aggressively there. I'm not entirely sure if he had the escape plan worked out, but at least he was able to find that. Speaking of finding kills, though, Gunnar gonna get himself hit up here. The Ice Blast is flying through inside of the arena, and the Finger of Death from Flea will finish the job.
And that is your Blink Dagger reveal on the Mars. You need to be cautious. I know he's going to play differently going forward, but you can't give those opportunities over to this Mars, especially after knowing how centralized the team squad was. It was very easy for them to go for that pickoff on a Z-Freak and then immediately finding the Gunner right after. Don't think you can allow that, especially with how farmed Sammy Boy is. If you can slow down the enemy cores just a little bit, you're only one component away from this Aghanim Scepter, and that's where you see him putting a lot of pressure on. And we've seen this core matchup before already today. If Sammy Boy can stay ahead of this Terrorblade, out farm him, just stay ahead in the levels, you're going to see him outpace this Terrorblade. And then you don't have meta. You can always just do whatever. You can work around this Metamorphosis timing. You don't have to be too concerned with the Sunder once that BKB is finally built up. And Sammy Boy is not showing any signs of stopping. There really isn't too many plays to be made on him outside of that Ravage. But I think on the Courier Moo, has his Blink Dagger, so that is going to be the play that Four Zoomers are going to look for. I don't know if this is strong enough to break the triangle, but they're looking for a fight.
Yeah, they've smoked up here. They want it. They've even brought Eternal Envy over for the damage, so we'll see what they can find. Right now, options are kind of limited. The Gyrocopter would be a fantastic jump if they can get it. You see Husky sort of making his way over, but he didn't get the vision down in time, so they don't actually know that Sammy is here, which means there's not a whole lot of reason for Moo and Z-Freak to continue pushing forward, but Envy is making his way up. Now they know Sammy's in the area, but as they jump in, well, the Gunner gets jumped in on elsewhere on the map. Sammy just jumped away. Husky did not have the bushwhack in time, but Moo does throw out the ult eventually. It's onto Ryoya, so, I mean, they will find a kill, but that is going to be the mid lane is traded out. And now there's a bit of a fight breaking out around this tower. Flea is here. Brax is looking for the spear. He doesn't have the easy setup with the arena, though. That's going to make life a little bit more difficult. Now he'll throw it. That's going to pin down the Tusk, but Flea should still be finished off as Moo gets the double. But now with Sammy back after his TP out initially, this could get a little bit more complicated. Z-Freak's taking some damage. He's going to go for the snowball just to make sure nobody can catch up to him, and that is going to be enough to pull him away.
And that's where, fortunately, Sammy Boy was able to get out there, but didn't have the sort of sneakiest TP. He didn't go for the tier 2 or the tier 1 tower, so Ryoya does die in his wake. They had a little bit too much vision there. Really fantastic warding coming out from the Four Zoomer side, allowing them to make that easy dive onto Ryoya. And if they don't dive him as perfectly as they were able to, Ryoya gets that curse off, fight completely resets, and then I think team are happy because at the same time they were killing Gunner in the exact same spot in that bottom lane. But you did have to commit the arena, so they weren't exactly ready for that top fight. But Flea was able to finish off his Blink Dagger. I believe after that kill on the Lina bottom, he's just got a lot more net worth to his name than he otherwise would, and they're actually setting up on Z-Freak. I think Z-Freak, oh, perfect shards. Scouting out the Lion, just the Spidey sense is tingling, and now his teammates are coming to meet him in the bottom jungle here, but I don't think they really want to stick around.
They
The only
don't,
hero that can kind of help him is that Lina. It's a little bit risky here.
and they didn't have the Ravage there either, so don't really have that sort of guaranteed jump in, hit everybody, keep them all stunned up, and now Gunner's going to TP himself out. So without the Lina, Z-Freak's got to be a little bit more careful. You even see that Hoodwink sort of breaking off as Husky makes his way, well, out of that situation, but it looks like they didn't actually manage to get him out of there. The Tusk is going to go for the snowball now onto Ryoya, but he is still stuck here. The Hex comes through. He is completely surrounded. This should be a relatively straightforward kill. Nice Walrus Punch, though, to throw Brax up in the air, but it's not going to do much more than that. Brax takes a little bit of damage, but Ryoya is going to be able to get the kill, showing off that Witchblade now as the damage output takes a step forward, and now the Aghanim Scepter being queued up for him. So if the Wyvern can continue to build, Ryoya is going to be quite a bit more dangerous. He does still need quite a bit of time to get to that point, but progress has begun.
And that's where once Sammy Boy, and he's got the crit stick queued up right now, and that is a huge damage tick up. I can't imagine that he doesn't go for the BKB in another game. I think it's just a little bit too greedy, and I don't think it's something that he should really take the risk for, because if he can stabilize this mid game, he's going to have a lot of things to fall back on, specifically this Aghanim Scepter being built up by Ryoya. Ryoya is incredibly farmed on this Winter Wyvern. Even though he's not able to stand nearly as close to Gunner, he's able to get those later timings. He doesn't farm nearly as fast as that Lina does naturally, and Lina also adept at killing the Ancients, where really, you can never really expect to kill those Ancients unless you have way more farm on the Winter Wyvern. But at the same time, you're taking more farm away from your Terrorblade to allow this Lina to play her game. Not saying that Gunner has really been stepping on Eternal Envy's toes at all. You see how many last hits he has, and those 2 deaths have slowed him down, but the reason he is dying is because he's playing on the enemy side of the map, playing as far away from this Terrorblade as possible. And Team haven't yet found that punish onto Eternal Envy. He has been able to sit with 0 deaths. He really has been really just unstopped, uncontrolled farm coming in from this Terrorblade, and he's going for the BKB as well. So once he has that, not really afraid of anything coming out from Team, and his teammates will need to be afraid of him either, because that curse will also be negated. And I don't think there's ever a situation where you're going to want to curse Eternal Envy and then hope that the Lina kills him. I don't think Gunner's going for that same type of physical build.
And meanwhile, Z-Freak even getting a little bit going for himself here. I believe he finished off a Blink Dagger. There we go. Courier delivering that out to him. So even your Tusk is going to be able to sort of close that gap, and it looks like for Zoomers, they want the fight. They're going to push in. They run into Flea first, but Flea was able to blink himself out. That is going to be some fast reactions, and now how much further do you want to go? Team, they're actually kind of backing away here. Thought for a moment maybe they could pull him into, or pull for Zoomers rather, into some sort of trap, but they're a little too split up in that circumstance. They don't want to go all the way in, and by the time all of those sort of 3 different prongs were to sort of push into the west side jungle, they could have lost 1 or 2 of their heroes. So better to back away, stay safe, keep Sammy farming as best as you can, and look for opportunities sort of further down the line. No need to jump in right on that one.
And that's where you look back at the Gyrocopter. He was able to pick up that crit stick, but instead he's valuing that Satanic. If he can get Satanic Daedalus, 4 Zoomers are going to need to run. Of course, this is going to give them an opportunity where, can you burst Sammy Boy in a Ravage with a Laguna Blade, with a Sharpshooter? I think the answer is yes. So this is a very risky itemization coming in from the Gyrocopter, but if his teammates can back him up, if they can play the interrupt game, the same game that 4 Zoomers played in the previous game, I think that they might be able to get the slight advantage here. But I'm seeing a very similar situation where both teams are on the high ground. You see 4 Zoomers completely situated in the Radiant Triangle. And right now, Team, they're whiffing with this rotation. They're not able to make the play. I think they can tell where 4 Zoomers are, though, with this bottom tower. All of their lanes are in right now. They only have 1 hero creep cutting that top area. And I think after that circle, they will have to break apart here. And not in a position to punish Gunner. They're looking for the punish on the mid wave. And if they get Eternal Envy.
Okay. They hit him up. No BKB right now for Envy, but the
What a
snowball. Big plays in there with the save. It's going to pull them away to Flee, but that's going to reset the fight. Envy's in some trouble. Can they lock him down? Not quite yet. Moo's coming in, though, dropping the Ravage. It is going to create a little bit of separation, but Envy, he's still low, but he does get the Sunder off, able to heal himself up. Sammy, meanwhile, was left all by himself to deal with 3. Gunner cuts him down with that Laguna Blade. And now Four Zoomers are going to surge forward. Ryoya and Brax trying to hold them back, but Z-Freak blinks in, gets the snowball down. Mu is going to be there with the gush, but Ryoya, well, just flies over those shards. He's not really going to have to care about that lockdown, and at this point, Four Zoomers are beginning to regroup. They've got the Hex in on to Gunner, but they need further lockdown, and they need more damage. Right now, it's just Brax on the front line. He's immediately going to get punished and taken down, and now this is just falling apart. Flea is one hit away as Envy will just finish that kill, and Ryoya is really the only survivor. That was looking initially like a fantastic play, but the clutch save from Z-Freak completely changes that engagement.
Just Z-God. That is insane that that actually went down. He dodges the finger damage as well. It's not just that he got fingered, then he got put in the snowball. No, he dodges the finger damage, keeps Eternal Envy at that high HP pool, and then unfortunately, IX Mike gives him a full sunder, a full reset, and even though it felt like they were able to turn, Gunner was so low, they didn't have the follow-up. They needed at least one more item. They were still waiting for this Aghanim Scepter to be finished up by Ryoya. You just can't stick on these heroes without it, and it's an unfortunate state of events because during all of that, you're also able to make the play onto Sammy Boy, take him out, punish the fact that, again, can't flame him for it. He's incredibly farmed on this gyrocopter, but no BKB. And that's where I think he is going to finish up this Daedalus, keep that relative strength in his hands, but the BKB, it needs to be queued up. It needs to be a prerequisite. He can't afford to be afraid to stand in the middle of these fights.
He is queuing it up now, but yeah, it's going to have to build himself up towards it. The Daedalus, though, was finished, so the damage output now on the gyrocopter is going to be pretty intimidating, and this is an interesting one. They're going to go in for the Roche attempt, so I'm not really sure if the response is going to be here in time. Four Zoomers are kind of making their way over, but they are getting through this relatively quickly. Roshan down to about 1,500 HP already, so okay. Team sneak it. Very nicely done. First Roche of the game goes their way. That gush comes in sort of after the fact, but too late to really make a difference.
And I like it from Sammy Boy. He gets the Daedalus because he knows he can make that play if he has enough damage. Without it, I think that Roche is a lot slower, and again, it's a nice smoke to get into the pit. Four Zoomers really had no idea, and without the Eternal Envy Terrorblade playing in that outpost shrine area, a place where he doesn't necessarily want to be forced to play, they just have no idea. It's the Radiant advantage. You're always able to get to have that Roshan just a little bit easier, a little bit sneakier, having these tier 2s just that little bit closer to the pit than the tier 2s on the dire side of the map. And Four Zoomers weren't able to get any counterplay in terms of split push at the same time. They're able to play in this bot lane where they have quite a lot of vision scouting out anybody trying to make a break for it, but we're getting to the situation where Four Zoomers have the more active carry, and a carry that doesn't need to use a big cooldown to get the pressure done on these towers, where I think we're going to need to see a little bit more coming in from Eternal Envy. And we see the Scotty queued up by this Terrorblade. If he's able to get it, we've seen this matchup again already today. If you can get that Scotty, really the gyrocopter can't stand up next to you. And we are seeing Sammy Boy not pull completely ahead of the Terrorblade, but this is where Team, they need to put the pressure on. They need to really force the issue for Four Zoomers to make a reaction.
They are making their way forward, and Ryoya, very importantly, finished off that Aghanim Scepter. So the Wyvern is now just a massively bigger threat than he had been at any point prior in this match, and you're going to have to be aware of that. Ryoya is going to hit harder. The Gyrocopter has 2 lives and the Daedalus for the damage, so Four Zoomers really need perfect execution here. They are trying their best to stalk after him. If Mu could get the blink into the Ravage, this would be big, but I don't think he saw that the Ryoya TP was coming in there, so the Wyvern is able to get himself away, and by extension, the rest of Team fall back too.
Yeah, and that's where Sammy Boy, we've seen this gyrocopter as well. When you get this first Aegis, you can't slink back. You need to take these aggressive positions, and that's where Brax is really the player that needs to find these initiations. And of course, you can't always rely on Z-Freak able to get those crazy saves off, but if you can get a successful arena down onto Gunner pre-BKB, he got this Lincoln Sphere to play a little bit easier versus this Flea Lion, but you can definitely die. Unfortunately, not without Z-Freak setting up the play on Flea in the bottom lane, and I'm surprised Flea is even playing down here because they have all of this infrastructure, everything set up, and Sammy Boy, he's trying to make a little bit of the walk of shame to this top area. They want the outpost back, they also want to put more pressure on this tier 3, but I think with this run, Four Zoomers are going to be able to claim this bottom tier 2 tower and probably the outpost. So it's more time allotted to this Terrorblade to finish up that Scotty, and I don't think Team are okay with that situation.
Yeah, Gunner is just going to go straight in for that tier 4 once the creep wave arrives. Even holding off on using that DD rune, so they're going to try and take this without having to commit too much in the way of resources, but at the same time, it's not Sammy pushing it, but you do see Brax and Ryoya trying to get the creep wave up to the tier 3, but I feel like without the damage from the gyrocopter, this is not much of a threat. They're just sort of poking and prodding at it, and you actually see no one from Four Zoomers is even TPing back. They really don't register that as a strong enough threat to force them to do much of anything. So Ryoya is the one who has to TP back, picks up the Kaya, so he continues to sort of build himself up. Kaya and Sanj looking like the call for him. A BKB queued up as well, so we are starting to get a little bit more in the way of scaling on that Wyvern as we move forward, and I mentioned it previously, that could be something that Four Zoomers are, I don't know if I'm unprepared for, that doesn't really sound right, but something that they might underestimate, but feels like the execution has been going pretty well for them for the most part, since we sort of stepped out of the laning stage, so we'll have to wait and see what they can do. We'll have to see what Moo can do with this sort of Blink Ravage play. If he can get off that ult again before any of those BKBs are finished or activated, it would be pretty massive, but there's going to be the jump in. They've caught Envy. Can they keep him locked down? Spear stun comes out, but no, Envy's able to pop the BKB. He'll turn around. Oh my god, they'll turn around and they just destroy the gyrocopter. He held off on using the BKB on the first life. He will pop it now. Let's see how they really can take this fight. Sammy's going to start backing up, but you see Brax kind of inching his way forward, hoping to see if there's any sort of play, but they really don't have the opening. Everybody will back off, and that is not the greatest use of the Aegis in the world for Team, but at least it's just the Aegis and not any further heroes. But for Zoomers, they want to change that. They're pushing forward. They're in onto Ryoya. They're going to drop the Ravage down. The Winter Wyvern, no BKB finished off yet. He's just gone.
Yeah, and that's where when BKBs are committed, when everything is thrown down, these Four Zoomers get the advantage if they didn't have to use Ravage, and clearly they did not. Moo still being patient, still holding it, also sitting at the 4th highest net worth in the game. He has so much farm on this Tide Hunter. This Aghanim Scepter is so obnoxious with all of the talents you can get for it, and we're seeing this net worth lead continue to grow for the Four Zoomers side, where Team, because you had to go for this itemization on Sammy Boy, I don't even think it's that wrong. You're going to run out of gas
Gunner,
here.
though.
Yeah.
Hitting up the Lina in the bottom lane. Oh, they don't quite have the damage just yet. Gunner's going to try to make a break for it, but he will be finished off as they get Sammy Boy into that fight. They've lost Flea, though, and now Sammy, well, he just doesn't have it. The BKB wasn't back up. There's no Satanic to bail him out. Four Zoomers even going to throw a couple of tips his way, and that is a pretty brutal loss for them. Four Zoomers are even going to be able to potentially clean up Brax here, as that Mars is just trying to backpedal his way into the base, but Moo and Envy really don't seem to care too much. This is going to be a slow process, but eventually they do get the job done as the kill goes their way, and the team at this point, they've just got to try and calm it down a little bit, regroup. It's a nice kill that they get onto Gunner. They pick off Flea as well, but it takes them that little bit too long. The Lina survives just long enough where Four Zoomers' reinforcements really kind of break open the second half of that fight.
And yet again, they're playing underneath the Four Zoomers' vision. You're playing underneath their outpost. That's most likely why they were able to get the kill onto Gunner in the first place, but it still feels like they're taking these risks really with no reward. And this matchup, we see only 1,600 net worth between this Terrorblade and the gyrocopter, and right now you're missing a very key item on the gyro. We talk about the Satanic versus the Scotty, but right now there's not even a Satanic on the gyrocopter. That's the big reason why you're able to stand so strong on top of this Terrorblade, and then you make it a little bit closer with the Scotty pickup, but right now it's not even. As soon as you get some of this more physical damage, especially coming in from your Lina, this gyrocopter is going to feel like he can't stand next to either core on the Four Zoomer side, and that's where you have to bring it back to the Mars. It has to come to his initiation, whether or not they can actually pick you off and burst you before you're able to get any of your spells, any of your DPS out, and they can assuredly do that on the team side, but it's just a hard road ahead. They don't have the best heroes for getting vision, for getting that knowledge in the jump. They're really just running high and dry, and I think they need to do something pretty soon here, because as of right now, I think Four Zoomers are going to very patiently take the advantage going into this sort of early late game.
Yeah, at this point it feels like they don't have a whole lot that's going to rush them in terms of making some sort of emergency play to try and get through the tier 2s, get to the high ground. They can afford to play this one a little slower because, yeah, the gyrocopter is always going to be a threat. Sammy continues to farm, but you look at the cores on their own side, all three of them sitting in that top 4, so Can you outpace a gyro on a 1-to-1 scale? No, not really. But if your cores are all close enough, as a team, they're just going to continue to have that control. So there's not a whole lot in terms of factors that are forcing Four Zoomers to take action right now. We've got Roche coming back up in about 15 seconds, so that could very well be the next sort of major objective here. Four Zoomers are already kind of hanging in and around this river area, so they can check on it pretty frequently once Roche is back up. If they can go in, if they can get the Aegis and Shees in their hands, then I don't know. It's going to be even more difficult for Team. We'll see what they can do, but it may come down to contesting Roche for them.
Yeah, and you see Brax playing in this top lane. He's getting chased down just a little bit by Moo. They have so many good sources of vision. They have the Gush. They have the Ice Shards. They have these Terrorblade illusions that Eternal Envy, whenever he's not meted, he does a fantastic job of setting these illusions to the right areas of the map to give you that knowledge of where the enemy team is playing. The beautiful thing about Envy is he's doing all of this while maintaining farm, maintaining speed, just continuing to close that gap between him and Sammy Boy. And I don't think Team can afford to give up their high ground right here.
Sammy.
He showed him the wave.
He's going to Hurricane Pike himself back. Ooh, Z-Freak. If he hits with those shards, maybe they can get something done. Even the BKB still would have sort of forced him to go around it physically. So, no. Z-Freak gives it a shot. I don't know if that would have been guaranteed to get them into the fight, but it's a bullet dodged by Team. Ice Blast now goes to the pit, so they know for sure on the Team side that Roshan has respawned, and now you are also aware of the fact that you've kind of given up control of your west side high ground to Four Zoomers with Roshan up. So we'll see how they respond to that full 5-man smoke. Looks like the play. They're going to try to wrap their way around, and maybe this is the moment. If they can get the drop, this could go their way, but they do need to be able to get Eternal Envy. We've seen a couple of times they try for it, and they just can't really bring him down in time, and either the Sunder comes out, or I think the last time around, Envy just kind of walked away just in general. So big sort of stakes here for this fight. For Zoomers smoking up as well. Unfortunately for both teams, they're kind of going in opposite directions now.
Yeah, and fortunately for them, they will stumble across this arcane rune, but as soon, yep, the vision, they're going to get rid of one ward, but I don't think they know about the second one, and that's where Sammy Boy is going a little bit further away from his team.
No BKB, he gets hit by the Ravage first into the Walrus Punch. They're going to lock him down, and he's already dead. There's no buyback available. The rest of Four Zoomers, there's nothing left to fight with. You have to just back off. Brax is going to use the last of his BKB to TP home, and that's all you can do. Cut your losses, try to get away, but Gunner is in there with the stun. Husky follows it up with the Bushwhack. Flea and Mike both taken down, and now they are trying to hunt down more, but Ryoya got himself back to the base alongside Brax, but that's 3 heroes dead, and Team, they never even got the chance to respond. Sammy's just dead so quickly.
And now, after Eternal Envy gets this tier 2 tower, gonna send his illusions down to the wave, maybe keeps his high HP one with him. Well, actually, his team is just confident in killing Roche without him. They're gonna get the Aegis probably to Gunner, and yeah, this is just endless pressure now put onto Team. You still have 45 seconds without your gyrocopter, and he doesn't have buyback for 380 gold. I think Ryoya will make this very obnoxious for them to ever purely just go up the high ground, but still, Moo is so good with these Ravages, with these decision making, and I think Team, they thought they were safe. They thought they could split off. They were like, well, we whiffed with our smoke. We walked all the way around the map. We're back where we wanted to be in our own triangle, and Four Zoomers somehow find the play. It's just crazy how both these teams rerouted themselves both back to the triangle. That Team, they went there and then they left, and then Four Zoomers went there and then they left, and then they collided with Sammy Boy breaking the smoke. And Brax.
He tried to make the play, but Gunner's BKB breaks it all up. Brax gets taken down. Mike falling as well. Winter's Curse is applied to Z-Freak, but that's not fantastic. They should at least be able to kill him as Sammy joins the fight, but that's 2 heroes dead, and neither of those two have buybacks. So the high ground defense is going to be a little bit rough, but with Ryoya and Sammy both still here, they should be able to clear out the creepways to the point where Four Zoomers would really just have to go all in for the fight, as opposed to just trying to sort of knock things down gradually. And Four Zoomers aren't really all that interested in that. Even with the Aegis in Gunner's hands, they don't want to just force their way through. So if you're Team, it does kind of suck that they had to lose a couple of heroes, but if that is the sacrifice necessary to keep your opponents off of your high ground, it wasn't for nothing. They buy time and they kill the Tusk.
And that's where, again, you're buying time, you're playing around your high ground. really hasn't been able to accomplish too much, but you want to wait for this Ravage. You don't want to go too crazy. Unfortunately, you did lose Z-Freak bottom, but really just gold in the hands of your enemies. That is all it is. There's no aggression. There's no play that they can really make without Brax. And finally, now that he's alive, picks up a gem. And I don't believe they have a smoke right now. They have to wait for another opportunity to take back a lot of the land that they've had to give up, as well as a courier trying to make their way to the secret shop. Should be able to steal something. I believe that's an Aeon disc coming in for Flea, but everything still feels pretty in the Four Zoomers ballpark. It feels like right now everything is going up in their favor. There's a full AC now completed on the Tidehunter, still a Cheese and an Aegis on their team. I don't remember, or I don't see who was able to actually pick up that shard. Okay, they actually gave it to the Tusk, so now there's a Sigil to work with. Just more kiting potential going their way, and we're still waiting for that next item coming in from Sammy Boy, an item that doesn't feel like it's going to do very much anymore. He went back for that Hurricane Pike. I think they've really missed the Shroudcopter's timing now, and whenever you see the Terrorblade start to eclipse the Gyro, we know that there's an issue in the draft.
Yeah, Sammy pushing out the bottom wave. He did get the tier 1 tower, so that's a little bit of gold into their hands, but speaking of towers, they lose a tier 3 over on the other side. As Gunnar pushes his way in, they're going to send the Sigil forward, just sort of keeping it in the tree line, but Rioja is going to try to bring it down. It times out before he can finish it, but either way, that Sigil no longer part of the fight. But you see Zoomers, they're just kind of setting up, getting ready for that siege mode, and if your team, it's all hands on deck. They really can't afford to send anyone out on a split pushing mission right now, with 4 Zoomers sort of on the verge of pushing forward onto them. So they're just kind of locked in their base right now. Sammy's at least going to try to clear through these creep waves, and he does a pretty damn good job of it, but they're kind of trapped.
And that's where Gunnar, you see he takes so much damage from that Arctic burn still. It still feels incredibly strong, especially with the Kai Sange now picked up from Rioja. But if you're ever able to hit these buildings, it is just going to be a meat shredder. It is just going to immediately go down, as well as Mu. He's been so patient. If he ever finds a Ravage, he's had 2 almost perfect Tidehunter games so far. If he finds anything else, that is going to be what breaks teams back here. No buybacks on many of their heroes. If anyone goes down, they've really had to play with sort of their hair to the wind. They need every single item they can get at this point.
Sammy bought out for his Scotty and then loses it on the courier, so he now has no Scotty and no buyback. So this is sort of final fight kind of stuff. If they don't hold here, everything just kind of goes up in smoke. And if you're 4 Zoomers, how aggressive do you want to be here? Gunnar's only got the Aegis for another 30 seconds, and he actually just TP'd himself down to the bottom lane. He does have the bots, so if he needs to regroup, he can do so fairly quickly. But by the time he would TP back now, your Aegis is going to be timing out, so maybe 4 Zoomers don't want to push it just yet, but then you're buying time for Sammy to get his courier back, to get the Scotty back. Maybe Rioja continues building towards the Hex play that he's looking for here, so I don't know. I feel like if you're 4 Zoomers, now you're sort of starting to walk that edge between caution and maybe having this drag on a little bit too long. I don't think they just want to barrel their way forward, even with the Aegis, but the more time you sort of let this drag on, the more team are going to have potential openings.
And that's where I think Gunnar just wanted to TP bottom. He knows that the Ancients are about to respawn, so someone's got to farm it. They're just playing to their advantage, where if they're not going to break the high ground with this Aegis, they're going to have a 40k gold lead by the time the next Aegis is available to them, and then they're going to push your high ground. And that's where team are going to start to feel starved. And I legitimately don't think that they're going to attempt to make a play until maybe they have another smoke in stock, or they have the Scotty up on Sammy Boy, and their game state is not changing. They are still mode defend the high ground, and it's not a fantastic position to be in, especially you look at the Arcane Blinks coming out from both the Lina and Mu. Arcane Blink Ravage is something to behold. It's something that you can't really react at that point. Even if you're on the edge, it comes out so much faster, and that's where if these BKBs are not getting cast, we haven't seen Rioja cast his BKB just yet. He hasn't been in those positions, but if they catch them without those BKBs going off, it's just going to be a very, very quick team fight. They do so much physical damage now on the side of 4 Zoomers.
Yeah, and then team double-edged sword, right? If you preemptively pop the BKB and your opponents just sort of walk away, then you're just kind of caught there without your magic immunity. As Brax trying to hold his BKB, but he has to use it there, as Mu was right on top of him. The shards didn't quite have the range. So Brax is going to be able to walk away, getting a little bit of extra damage in since he does have the shard upgrade, which, in terms of control, it is going to be a little bit helpful. The damage is maybe not great, but being able to knock back too, if BKBs aren't up on the 4 Zoomer side either, exactly what we just saw could happen. They try to push in, and they just get sort of knocked back. Brax walks away and buys more time. But Sammy Boy is really the only one farming right now, and he's only farming intermittently. You see him sort of taking down creep waves when they push in, but outside of that, they haven't been able to secure a whole lot for him. So I mentioned earlier on, the longer this goes on, maybe you're giving Team chances to get back in. This is exactly what I was talking about, though. That's a good play. In onto Z-Freak, but there's that Ravage from Mu. Sammy, well, he didn't pop the BKB yet, so he's still trying to hold on for that as long as he can, but who did they really target at this point? Flea is soaking up a lot of attention over to the north, but once he falls, what do they do next? Sammy's trying to get away. BKB not popped just yet. He's still holding it. He'll throw it down now, but at this point, he's lost too much HP.
They do so much damage, and he gets the Scotty slotted in, but that's not enough gold. I don't think he has buyback, and they're going to push everything right now.
Yeah, there
is. Are they going to try to end? Yeah.
There's no buyback yet. They're just going to go for it. If they had buyback, they would have used it already on that gyro, so they're all in. Now you see Brax and IX Mike getting in. That's a very nice curse into the AA blast. Envy, okay, he does go for the Sunder, but Gunner not quite as fortunate. He gets taken down. Brax, though, falling. They have to get him back to the fountain. They can't. Mike and Brax both dead. Ryoya, though, trying to hold. He'll take down Envy now as well, and, well, 4 Zoomers, that is not what they wanted in the slightest. Now they're going to back themselves away, so you go from, maybe we just won the game, to, oh, crap, we have to get out of here.
And I understand the play there. They want to dive Ryoya. They want to go for the Wyvern. They know it's going to be very annoying. But instead, you give away your 2 kills. You give all of that gold over to Ryoya. And at least you're able to get the glyph out from your opponents. But that was it. You got 2 buybacks, a glyph, and what should be, I think, the game right here is now going to extend just that little bit further. And we saw right there, if you can get a curse into the AA blast, these heroes on the 4 Zoomer side are still going to die. At least you have the Sunder versus AA blast where you're still able to use that HP pull advantage. He was able to Sunder one of his own illusions. Eternal Envy did a good job of keeping one in the back there, but still, this game could get very scary for 4 Zoomers very quickly if they allow too much time to Ryoya to really get another item, and he's sitting on 6k gold right now.
And that feels especially bad considering 4 Zoomers, that was sort of their perfect opportunity. You catch Sammy Boy in a very awkward position. He dies with no buyback, and you sort of whiff, really. And now Sammy's back in. He's going to start farming up towards that buyback. He can't get it instantly, obviously, but progress will be made towards it. You mentioned Ryoya. He's sitting on so much gold. He's going to spend most of it for the Mjolnir upgrade. So, well, damage, attack speed, the chain lightning, or not the chain lightning, the static charge, excuse me, honestly could be pretty good on maybe not himself directly, but if you throw that onto someone like Sammy or Brax and they get into the midst of it, all the right-clicking from 4 Zoomers could sort of trigger that out and return a nice bit of sort of static damage onto it.
And that's something where we're still looking for more from Brax. He's been so put to the sidelines right now, farm-wise. He's had to spend so much money on buybacks. He really only has Blink BKB. He needs an armor item, because right now Sammy Boy is just taking all of the damage from his allies. He's tanking for Ryoya. He's trying to tank for literally everyone, and he's got 4,000 HP, but if both the cores are able to focus him down, he dies very quickly.
Got the Arcane Blink. They jump in. Moo's going to get immediately into the fight. Sammy, though, not dead. Good Cold Embrace. Winter's Curse coming out now as well. They need that AA Blast, but it's only going to hit onto Husky, and Sammy, he's still dead. Dead with no buyback available. Ryoya is going to try to hold the line. He and Flea are dishing out the damage. They've taken down Z-Freak, but Z-Freak is not exactly the end-all be-all hero that they needed, and last time Ryoya was able to make a miracle happen. This time, I don't think it's going to work out. There are very few buybacks, just one up on the Lion, so at this point, Team really in a bad way, but the only reason 4 Zoomers came close to ending the game the last time is because that fight started in their opponent's base. This time, they're so far away, they're actually going to go for Roshan instead, so Aegis Cheese and the Aghanim's Blessing will all go their way, but by the time they finish this off, some of those death timers may be ticking down a little bit. Not enough to get everybody back in, but well, maybe you can get the Ancient Apparition back in. That Ice Blast will be online, 35 seconds away from the Mars, so maybe they can get this. It depends on how quickly Four Zoomers push and how much time Ryoya can buy. You see him using the Splinter, just trying to sort of clear out that creep wave as much as possible, hoping that that buys him enough time. As Four Zoomers, they're going to move their way in. They take down the tier 3. Melee racks dropping as well. So this time they're not just going sort of all in for it. They are going to be a bit more thorough. And I think that buys enough time. Team. Getting the Ancient Apparition back. The Mars is up in 5. Ryoya just needs to not get caught. He's going to actually take a hell of a lot of damage from Gunnar. Ice Blast, though, at point-blank range from Mike is going to push Gunnar back, but now Mike needs to make sure that that doesn't happen to him. The Flicker actually did get him away, but not quite far enough. Husky snipes him out. Brax, though, does come in with the Spear, but it's on to Moo, the tankiest hero, really, at the current moment. That arena is not great, but it does at least push Moo away, so Team are still holding it, Envy. He's been caught in the bottom lane, but Sammy wasn't there to really provide the bonus damage, so it was just Ryoya and Flea, and at that point, if you chase too far out of the base and you lose your heroes, that's just going to be the end of it. So they do regroup, they get just about everybody back in, and the AA is only 20 seconds away, and he'll have the ult up, so I mean, we're just sort of looking for silver linings here for Team. They're still fighting as much as they possibly can, but every time Four Zoomers push in, they get closer and closer to closing this one out.
Precisely, and we're getting to that point where 40k gold lead now for Four Zoomers. Team, they have to stage something amazing. They have to stage something very special here, but it can't be on the Lina. They can't kill Gunnar first. We now have an Arcane Rune, I think, popped onto Moo. Didn't want to keep the bottle, even though that would be an incredibly short cooldown. That'd be a 60-second Ravage, I think, if he did commit the Arcane Blink. But they need to figure out a way to allow Sammy Boy to stand up in these fights a little bit more. He doesn't know if the solution is going to be that Agi Blink or if it's going to be something else. Unfortunately, both him and Ryoya do have buyback, but the bigger problem at hand is that this bottom tower, that's it. That is going to be your megas, and here we go.
Ryoya just spent his gold.
Still.
So his buyback's actually been knocked out, so MKB's going to be useful, but if he gets taken down, he has to make sure he's sort of staying on that back line. So we'll see how it goes. Moo jumping in, though. Ravage deployed. They are going to be able to absorb the first hit, but Sammy, well, not really going to be able to make it happen. But there's the buyback. He's back into the fight. Brax is pushing forward. Moo is dropping low. And Sammy, he's coming in with a vengeance. They've taken down Gunnar once. They finish off Moo as well. They need to be able to get onto Envy, or they've got to set up onto the Lina. It looks like they're going to go for Envy instead. They've locked him down. They've taken him out. The Sunder was already used, so he is dead. And Gunnar, yeah, he's got to get out of this fight. Brax doesn't want to let him go. Is there any chance he catches up, though? No. Bushwhack gonna hold him back. Gunnar continuing to get those fiery soul stacks up, so he should be just clearing out, but, well, Team, it did cost him that buyback, but they are holding. Z-Freak's gonna get caught now as well, and, I mean, they won't say die. Team just keep on fighting sort of tooth and nail, and they're not dead yet.
And now the role reversal, where we're going to see them pushing onto the high ground, and they do have glyph, they do have a lot, but if they ever commit the glyph here, we could see a base race situation, because Gunnar, he's actually not setting himself up to go for any cheeky plays, trying to cut the wave, and they do have to wait for the second wave back here. This is actually really unlucky for Four Zoomers. Oh, they're looking for Gunnar. Oh no, they're too obvious. Ooh. But now they're split. This is not good for them. Yeah, you see now it's a 2v2 if they stay on the... Oh, that's so unfortunate. They didn't let Four Zoomers get close enough. And now not only are they not going to get the buybacks out from the dead members of the Four Zoomers side, but all of this play, it just doesn't end up mattering. They actually can't do it now. They have to wait.
That is a play that, I mean, we've seen even the best of teams really just struggle to perfect, and you gotta like Four Zoomers with the discipline to a certain extent. They don't blow those buybacks. They wait it out, and Gunnar, Gunnar, he's been caught. BKB's active, though, but there's going to be the Hex. The Ice Blast is coming through. They've got the Finger of Death down. They need a little bit more damage, and they've got it. Gunnar is dead for 99, and that actually somehow works out better because that staggers that respawn. Now Gunnar, if he wants in, he's going to have to buy back, even with Eternal Envy there, so we'll see just how much the team side really commits for this. They've got the tier 3. They could clear out the middle lane of Rax. After that, though, I think it might be time for them to fall back. And we'll see. They take the Rax. Sammy.
Oh, he's going top? This is crazy from Sammy. This is
holding
really
the BKB,
scary.
but they've got to know Gunnar's got a buyback right now. As Moo jumps in, there's going to be the lockdown. Sammy can't afford to die. The BKB never gets activated, and he's dead for 2 minutes. Now Four Zoomers, they're just going to surge their way forward. They're in onto pretty much everybody. Ryoya looking to TP out. It looks like he's not going to make it as Gunnar cancels the TP. He waits too long. That BKB wears off, and that might just be the end of it. There's a buyback on Ryoya. There's one on Brax as well. They will be committing Brax's, but there's still no gyro for 100 seconds. This is going to be an insanely hard defense, and maybe they can do it. They've got Winter's Curse when the Wyvern buys back. They've got the Ice Blast to throw out from Mike, but it's going to have to be perfect.
And now they can just really dogpile on this bottom racks, and I don't know if they want to do this. They're going to buy back on Rioya, but I don't know if this is going to actually do anything.
See the Lincolns.
I think the meta, yeah, meta is going to...
Whoa.
Racks, he missed. He tried to get the spear back, but this is still so bad for them. They're being careful, though, on the 4-Zoomer side. They don't want to give up absolutely anything, because they still don't have buyback on that Lina. If Lina dies, they're in a little bit of a rough spot. Eternal Envy not having the meta as well. It's making them feel very scared, but we'll flee.
When and where do they make the move? Brax is trying to maintain that Blink Dagger timing as the Ice Blast. Well, they would have connected onto Moo, but Moo is able to walk away under the cover of the Minotaur Horn, so they don't really get what they want, but still holding. If you're team, they got the ranged racks, but the melee still standing. 30 seconds to gyro, and can they hold on? They need a little bit more at this point. To be honest, they could even just let themselves get Mega'd at this point just to try and buy more time, as that racks will fall. But what can they get in exchange? Zefreak and Moo are pushing their way forward. Moo is starting to drop a little bit low, though. They hit him out with the Hex, but the Kraken Shell comes through, keeping him alive. And Gunner is starting to dish out the damage. There's going to be the Laguna in onto Brack. They're trying to take the Mars down. He is gone, dead for 2 minutes. They're in onto Mike as well. And the Gyrocopter at this point, he's coming back up, and it feels like it's too late for him to make a difference. But they do get the buyback from Mike. The Tier 4 towers are still standing, and 4 Zoomers are going to show some respect to this renewed potential. As Rioya, look at him pushing in. Zefreak is actually getting bullied a little bit here, but Gunner back in, goes for the stun. Rioya's dead, and I think that's pretty much it. Sammy is here, but he can't do it alone. Mike is not going to be strong enough. They get the Ice Blast off on the Gunner so they can kill the Lina, but now you got to deal with Envy. Now you got to deal with Moo, and your Tier 4 towers are falling. It just doesn't feel like they really have enough, but Sammy, he's got to give it a go. He's pushing his way forward. That's a lot of damage out. The Tier 4 tower does fall, but Sammy is starting to clear through some of the creeps. He wants in onto Husky. They're looking for that quick kill onto the Hoodwink, but they're not going to get it, and now there's going to be the reinitiation. Sammy gets hit up by that Walrus Punch, and that's it. The GG will be called, and 4 Zoomers take Game 2, and they'll take the 2-0 sweep.
And it didn't feel clean, it didn't feel easy. It felt like 4 Zoomers were never behind in that game, but really just stalled it out at the end. They never wanted to break the high ground without Moo having that Ravage, and Moo just continues to find these point-blank Ravages on these targets where it feels like you're a Sand King. It feels like you're burrow striking them, except nobody can help him, and I think that's where 4 Zoomers really cracked the code here, where this Tidehunter plays so well versus this Flea Lion, where Flea needs to get close. He needs to get up close and personal to every single target he's going for, where Moo, that is another person for him to ravage. That's plain and simple, just another target for him to hit, and every single time Moo hit the mark over and over and over again. And sure, you dive the fountain, the game probably could have ended there where you didn't have your Scotty or your buyback or your gyrocopter, but 4 Zoomers, very patient, very quiet play, but at the end of the day, able to get the game, able to get the victory. Very clean stuff, I think. Maybe 35 minutes onwards, not the cleanest, but before that, they really laid the groundwork for this game.
Yeah, and you see the end result there, all 3 of their cores, double-digit kills, 14 for Gunner, 10 each for Envy and Moo. Assist counts insane for Zefreak and Husky. So, as you said, maybe it wasn't the cleanest gameplay in the world, but at a certain point, you stop kind of wondering too much about the execution, and it's more just about whether or not you can actually get it done. And 4 Zoomers definitely managed to do so. They play so well there, and I mentioned a little while it felt like maybe you've got patience crossing over into maybe waiting a little bit too long, but 4 Zoomers, they knew better. They knew that they still had the advantage. As long as they executed, they were going to be fine. They get caught out maybe once or twice, including that sort of dive onto Rioya, but at the end of the day, they get it back under control. They close things out, and despite Team putting together a very sort of valiant effort, they aren't able to hold on. So 2-0 sweep for 4 Zoomers, a nice move for them. Team meanwhile, at least they got the 1 point today. They took that 1-1 split against Beast Coast, so they don't come away completely empty-handed, but 1-3 wasn't exactly what they were hoping for coming into the day.
Yeah, and now they still have another series right after this one, but you were able to knock them down a peg. I think Team, after they got their victory versus Beast Coast, of course, still think that game was a little bit weird, a little bit awkward, but in both of these games, I think Four Zoomers had a very firm grasp on what they wanted to do. And again, it's that grasp that we saw both of these teams lacking when they went up against those South American squads. And keep in mind, the South American squads are no slouch. They're definitely scary teams in this tournament. But I really think that right now, both these teams, even though we did see the 2-0 happen for Four Zoomers, Team, both of their drafts, they are feeling better. They're feeling more comfortable, and that's all that really matters.
Yeah. And Four Zoomers are going to be in action once again. They do have one last series to play. They're going up against Infamous, but before they move into that, I do believe we are going to try to get an interview going here. So while we finalize that, I am going to swap us over to the other screen. So we're trying to sort of get that one sorted out just real quick like. So I'm going to throw the music back on for a little bit. We'll see if we can get that interview. And if we can, we're going to be bringing that your way in just a little bit. So sit tight, folks, and we'll see if we can get an interview from the winning side. Okay, there we go. There we go. Hello, everybody. I do believe we have the interview ready to go here. We've got Gunner from Four Zoomers ready to go, so we're going to be pulling him on in here, and we'll get his thoughts. I'll get his thoughts on the series and maybe the upcoming matchup as well. So let me yoink him on in here real quick like. There we go. Gunner, hello. Can you hear us?
Hello? Yeah.
Let me just a moment. Let me adjust your audio there. There we go. So, thank you for taking a moment to sort of talk to us. I know you got another series coming up, so we're going to try to keep this one a little bit short. But first and foremost, congratulations getting yourself that 2-0 sweep.
Yeah, first 2 of the tournament. Easy series to get it in, to be
Oof.
honest.
All right. Already sort of some shots fired. So I Gunner, I have to ask the stupid question, so I am going to ask the stupid question. You and Team, there's been some stuff, you know, some jokes here and there, a lot of the roster swapping between some of your players. Outside of just the 2-0 sweep, did this series have a little bit of extra meaning attached to it going up against one of your rivals like that?
Oh, not really. I mean, the biggest was apparently there was some misinformation that went around about how the rosters came to be. Uh, I I'm pretty sure what was said. Well, basically, I'll say what happened.
Okay.
We were originally gonna stay as four, with the four of us without Sam, and then Brax decided to leave, and then me and Husky just decided to switch to this team. So there was no, Sam Brax, and then we kicked Ocean, all that shit. That shit was fake. It was just we were gonna play as four, and then it ended up not working out. So just no other rumors. That's all that happened. Just
I'm not gonna
clean
lie,
slate out there.
was kind of hoping for something a little bit spicier, but it is always better to get the truth out as opposed to some spicy memes. So I do appreciate you kind of clearing that one up for us. But that was, again, the stupid question. Stupid question's gone now. We'll focus on the game itself. Getting put on the Lina here, a hero that, at least in that sort of core position, we've been seeing kind of sparingly in recent times. Was that just you guys saw the matchup that you wanted? Was that the plan from the get-go when that Lina was picked up? Or how did that really sort of come into play? Because once you were on the Lina, you kind of just tore through everybody.
I was told I was playing Lena and I could AFK in the draft. So, I mean, I was Lena the whole time. I was, I was living life.
Well,
It-
you weren't the only one AFK'd in the draft. We had some internet connection issues on this front, so sort of similar boat, although I didn't get to play Lena at the end of it. I just had to have a nice phone call with Comcast. So your scenario worked out quite a bit better than mine, that's for sure.
Yeah, playing Dota is always more fun than not. As everyone addicted to the game says, so missing out.
Well, I'm gonna get out of the way. I'm gonna let ET get in here with some of those burning questions for you, Gunner.
Well, I just have a few ideas, I suppose, and just how do you feel against, or rather, going up against Infamous in just a few minutes here? In the previous BTS Pro Series, I really felt it was just you three. It was you, Undying, and Infamous. And in that series, we saw Infamous kind of did fail like the third spot in that running or in that lineup. So, what do you think of them now? Do you think that they're stronger now that they've reformed? I know a lot of people are excited with their new lineup. What are you looking at in a lot of these SA teams?
I think SA is just better than NA outside of the top like 3 NA teams. I think like SA has like 8 teams that are all like fairly similar skill, maybe like 6, 7. And NA has like 3 or 4. So
Okay.
it's my region needs to step it up so that we don't suck.
Well, what do you
Or-
think they need to do to step it up? Because I know a lot of, at least in some of these drafts, especially in the past 2 days, group stage wise, I see a lot of these SA teams kind of feel like they get the leg up in the first like 10 minutes of the draft, and even the first maybe 5 minutes, you guys are looking good, and then everything turns around in the mid game. What do you think NA needs to do to, again, get that leg up, feel like we have more teams running in the competition?
Uh, it's kind of weird right now, especially because the patch is like almost over. So I'm pretty sure a lot of
Hmm.
people's like mentality is either they pick the exact same stuff from like 3 months ago,
Yep.
which is slightly figured out from like pubs in the major, or they try to pick like new stuff that they think is going to be good, and it's either good or it's either a throw. So it's like drafts are really hard to read right now because no one really, there's no consistency. Everyone's just kind of picking. Like there's Pudge in China, there's Pudge Carry in
Yeah,
China.
there's
So
but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Ame's just doing whatever he wants.
so
Yeah.
yeah, it's
What can
hard
we
to
do?
say like drafting wise. Like some people are just gonna have better drafts, and that's kind of
Okay. And what do you think for Zoomers now going into this tournament? I guess what was the goal? Of course, the goal would be to, again, try to get the victory like every single team. But what do you think realistically you guys are going to be able to pull out? Because right now it does feel like a lot of those South American teams, and then maybe throwing Dying into the mix, they are sort of the front runners here.
uh, well. This is like our first time playing as a team. I think we
Hmm.
played 2 games total before this tournament,
Okay.
so
Okay.
we're kind of just like, especially the group stage, we're figuring out how to click as a team, testing out drafting, how to communicate. So it's kind of just like this group stage is a testing ground for us at least.
Okay.
So
Perfect. I mean, there's no better opportunity, right? Especially right now.
yeah, should go good. Like I'm expecting us to get better and better as the tournament like rapidly compared to
Okay.
other teams just because we're new.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys are the team that I know, aside from Undying, everybody's looking at four Zoomers. Everybody wants to see that same level of success. So, like everybody else, rooting for NA. But
Yeah.
I think that's it from me, Kmart.
All right. So, Gunner, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you guys are gearing up for your next series, so I very much appreciate you stopping by to talk to us. Anything shout out wise? Any last words you want to get in here before you head on back to your team?
Sometimes 2 Zoomers is more than enough. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Oh boy. Thank you, Gunner. Appreciate that very much. Yeah. The name still stands, even if maybe the absolute number of Zoomers isn't quite the same. But 4 Zoomers get the 2-0 sweep, and now they take their winning streak into the next series. They're going to be facing off against Infamous in just a little bit. So once again, really do appreciate Gunner taking the time to come talk with us instead of, maybe taking a little bit of an extra break in between series. But that next series is going to be coming up in just a little bit. 4 Zoomers versus Infamous coming your way, folks, in just about 5 to 10 now. So we're going to be stepping away. Hopefully, we have no further internet connection issues for the rest of the night as we get that final series started. So stick around. 4 Zoomers, Infamous, coming up in just a little bit.